Steph, let's get this out of the way, because the other thing that everybody wants to talk about is Caitlin playing off the ball. She sounds a little bit fed up already. This is what caught her eye this week. Out of ball play. Why do you think so many people are, as you said, freaking out about this?
Well, I think fans are fans for a reason, right? Like they want to see their favorite players in a way that they've always seen them. I think that certainly when you understand basketball and you talk about basketball, it's...
Oh, so now when you understand, so now you're trying to say...
Watch her face when she hears that question. That's not just frustration. That's a coach who's already dug in, already decided she's not budging no matter what fans think. Stephanie White just went on ESPN and essentially told Caitlin Clark's fan base they don't understand basketball. And she didn't stop there. She's doubling down on a strategy that has fans threatening to stop buying tickets. And the evidence suggests this conflict runs deeper than just X's and O's.
Basketball. None of us ever played. Nobody knows nothing about basketball if they are not in agreement to Caitlin Clark basically playing small forward, which you tried to do last year. You had Ari McDonald playing point guard and Caitlin Clark playing damn small forward. So because we don't agree with that as fans, we don't know nothing about basketball. Okay, you got it.
I think that certainly when you understand basketball and you talk about basketball, it's at every level, it requires a different version of the player. And at every level, every player is better.
There it is. Fans are fans for a reason. And then the kicker. When you understand basketball. That's not subtle. Stephanie White just drew a line between people who know the game and people who don't. And she's putting everyone who questions her offensive system on the wrong side of that line. But here's what makes this particularly problematic. Caitlin Clark herself has publicly expressed concerns about playing off-ball. This isn't just fans complaining on Twitter. The player at the center of this controversy has made her preferences clear, and her head coach just went on national television to explain why those preferences don't matter.
I just think that the way that Caitlin gets played, it's unique. I mean, it's 94 feet, it's all the time, and for us to be able to free her up a little bit, we play her off the ball. I mean, you see it in the NBA all the time.
You play her off the ball. Okay, first of all, you said the way you see it. Okay, the way you see it ain't the way we agree. We don't have to agree with the way you see the game. And furthermore, the way you see the game, you wasn't like that when you was playing. The way you see the game, you wasn't good when you was coaching at Vanderbilt. The way you see the game, you haven't won titles in the WNBA. So why the hell do we gotta go by what you see? Why should we trust what you see? What are you talking about here? This offense was perfectly fine before you showed up.
Now she's comparing it to the NBA, talking about freeing Caitlin up by playing her off the ball. But let's examine that claim with actual evidence. Last season under Christie Sides, there were multiple quarters where Indiana's offense scored 6 points. 6. And those weren't quarters where Caitlin dominated the ball. Those were quarters where the offense stagnated because the ball wasn't in the hands of their best playmaker. Here's the part Stephanie White isn't mentioning. When she talks about playing elite guards off the ball in the NBA, she's referencing players like Steph Curry. But Steph runs off multiple stagger screens, has plays designed specifically for his off-ball movement, and still handles the ball in crunch time. What White ran in Connecticut, and what fans saw in limited stretches last season, isn't that system. It's Caitlin standing in the corner while Kelsey Mitchell runs pick and roll.
What are you talking about? We had quarters last year where we scored 6 points in your offense. What are you talking about, Stephanie White? Talking about, we're freeing her up by playing her off ball. You're not freeing her up when you got her standing in a corner doing gardening for plants. You don't run screens for her. You don't run her off staggers. You don't run her off of, you don't have designated off-ball plays for her. So what are you talking about? You're freeing her up. Stop it, man. This is a ploy to keep the ball in Kelsey Mitchell's hand.
Now, does that mean that she's not going to have the ball in her hand?
Ease the load on her body and her mind. That sounds reasonable on the surface, until you remember what Caitlin Clark did at Iowa. She carried a heavier offensive load than any player in women's college basketball history, broke the all-time scoring record, and led her team to back-to-back national championship games. The load wasn't the problem. The load was never the problem. And notice the phrase second, third side of the floor. That's coaching speak for ball movement, for making the extra pass. But here's the issue Indiana fans have been screaming about. On Stephanie White's offense, when Caitlin makes that first pass, the ball doesn't come back to her. It goes to the second side, the third side, sometimes the fourth side. And then someone else takes a contested shot, while the best passer in the WNBA is standing in the corner watching.
Okay, she continues the Caitlin Clark talk. All right, bro, Stephanie White is not the coach for Caitlin Clark, man. I don't like. I already know that.
I'm curious about what the pressure is like for you coaching her, because every single thing she does is so hyper scrutinized. You know, you had her for 13 games last year. You're looking at this as we start the season right now. But what's it like for you coaching a kid like this that everyone's watching? And everyone thinks they know more about than you. That's the crazy part.
Yes. Yeah, that's fandom, right? That's
Well, some people appear to know more about her than you because
This is where it gets revealing. The interviewer asks about the pressure of coaching Caitlin, and White's response is telling. Everyone thinks they know more about her than you. There's that defensiveness again. But the reality is, some people actually might know more about what makes Caitlin Clark effective than Stephanie White does. Lisa Bluder coached Caitlin for 4 years at Iowa. She built an entire offensive system around maximizing Caitlin's unique combination of shooting range, court vision, and ability to break down defenses. That system produced the most dominant offensive player in college basketball history. Stephanie White coached Caitlin for 13 games last season. 13 games. And her offensive philosophy is fundamentally different from what made Caitlin successful.
the thing is this. Caitlin Clark was never Stephanie White's type of player. You can go back to when Stephanie White was doing television broadcasting for a Dallas Mavericks game. When she was calling a Dallas Mavericks game that Luka Doncic was sitting out, I believe, due to an injury. He wasn't playing. And during the telecast, Stephanie White is basically quoted as saying, oh, look at how the ball pops a lot more when Luka's not in the game, yada, 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 yada. Like, she liked the Mavericks more without Luka than with Luka because she felt like Luka had the ball in his hands too much. She does not like that type of player, which is why I don't know why you came to.
Here's the context that makes this entire situation more complicated. Stephanie White has a documented history of not liking ball-dominant guards. When she was doing television broadcasting for Dallas Mavericks games, she was on record during a game Luka Doncic sat out saying the ball popped more without him, that the offense flowed better when it wasn't centered around one player. That's not a controversial basketball opinion in general. Plenty of coaches prefer ball movement over isolation. But it becomes a massive problem when you accept a job coaching a team whose best player is exactly that type of ball-dominant guard. Caitlin Clark is in the same mold as Luka Doncic, Trae Young, Damian Lillard, players who are most effective with the ball in their hands, making reads, creating for others, controlling pace. That's who she is as a player. That's what made her the most popular player in women's basketball.
Stubborn. Stubborn would be an understatement at this point. You have the best point guard in the world, the best passer in the world, and you want the ball out of her hands. She's even taking shots at the fans, talking about, oh, well, if they knew anything about basketball, they know this, they know that. It's a lot going on. She even took shots at Caitlin Clark fans. This can't make this stuff up, man. Stephanie.
And this is the fundamental disconnect. When games get tight, when the pressure is highest, Caitlin Clark's instinct is to demand the ball. That's what elite competitors do. They want the responsibility in crucial moments. But Stephanie White's instinct in those same moments is to get the ball moving, to trust the system, to find the open player on the weak side. Those aren't just different philosophies, they're incompatible philosophies. One of them has to give, and right now it's clear which one Stephanie White expects to bend. The question is whether Caitlin Clark, coming off a Rookie of the Year season where she transformed the WNBA's popularity and proved she could dominate at the professional level, should be the one adjusting her game to fit her coach's preferences.
Down on this, keeping the ball out of Caitlin Clark's hands and playing off ball. Get down in the comments. Let me know what you think. This Keep the Vision. Make sure you like.
So let's break down what's actually at stake here, because this goes beyond one coach's offensive philosophy or one player's preferences. This is about the future of the Indiana Fever franchise and potentially the WNBA's momentum. Caitlin Clark didn't just have a good rookie season, she fundamentally changed the economics of women's professional basketball. The Fever's attendance jumped from averaging 4,067 fans per home game in 2023 to 17,035 in 2024. That's a 319% increase. Road attendance spiked whenever Indiana played. Television ratings for Fever games averaged 1.178 million viewers on ESPN platforms, with some games exceeding 2 million. Those aren't just good numbers for the WNBA. Those are numbers that forced mainstream sports media to pay attention. And all of that happened while Caitlin was playing her style of basketball. The style that made her famous at Iowa. The style where she has the ball in her hands, pushing pace, making reads, taking deep threes, threading passes that other players don't see. Fans didn't fall in love with Caitlin Clark, the spot-up shooter. They fell in love with Caitlin Clark, the maestro. Now Stephanie White is asking those same fans to trust that making Caitlin a complimentary piece will somehow be better for winning. But where's the evidence? White's Connecticut Sun teams ran a ball movement offense that was effective enough to make the playoffs but never won a championship. Her offensive rating numbers in Connecticut were solid but not elite. She's never coached an offense built around a player like Caitlin Clark because she's never had a player like Caitlin Clark. The comparison to NBA systems is particularly flawed when you examine it closely. Yes, Steph Curry plays off the ball, but the Golden State Warriors run him through an average of 2.4 screens per possession when he's off ball, according to Second Spectrum tracking data. They have specific actions, split cuts, elevator screens, Spain pick and rolls, designed to get him open looks off movement. And crucially, when the game is on the line, the ball goes back in Steph's hands for pick and roll. What Indiana ran in their playoff games last season wasn't that. Caitlin would make an entry pass and then stand in the corner for the next 18 seconds while Kelsey Mitchell or Aaliyah Boston worked in isolation. No stagger screens, no designed actions to get Caitlin open off movement, just static spacing while other players operated. And the results spoke for themselves. In their playoff loss to Connecticut, Indiana had a 12-minute stretch where they scored 9 points. 9 points in 12 minutes. During that stretch, Caitlin touched the ball on fewer than 40% of possessions. The offense didn't just struggle, it completely broke down. But here's what might be the most frustrating part for fans. Caitlin has been diplomatic about this. She hasn't publicly criticized Stephanie White. When asked about playing off-ball, she said she'd do whatever helps the team win, even though she acknowledged it's at a minimum compared to what she's used to. That's a professional response from a 22-year-old who understands the politics of the situation. Stephanie White, meanwhile, is going on ESPN and essentially calling fans ignorant. She's dismissing legitimate concerns about offensive efficiency by suggesting that anyone who questions her system doesn't understand basketball. That's not just tone deaf. It's potentially damaging to the relationship between the team and the fan base that drove all that growth. Because those fans have options. They can watch other teams. They can spend their money elsewhere. The WNBA is still building its audience, still trying to convert casual fans into committed supporters. Telling those fans they don't understand the game is a dangerous strategy. And there's a broader question about player development here. Caitlin Clark is 22 years old. She's going to be the face of this league for the next decade if things go right. Does it make sense to spend these crucial early years of her career fitting her into a system that minimizes her greatest strengths? Or should the system be built around maximizing what makes her special? Lisa Bluder understood this at Iowa. She didn't try to make Caitlin into a different type of player. She built an offense that amplified everything Caitlin did well. And the result was the most successful era in Iowa women's basketball history. A player who became a cultural phenomenon and a blueprint for how to maximize a generational talent. Stephanie White is taking the opposite approach. She's trying to fit Caitlin into her system rather than adapting her system to Caitlin's strengths. And when questioned about it, she's doubling down, insisting that her way is the right way, that fans and critics just don't understand. The historical precedent here isn't encouraging. We've seen this movie before in professional sports. Talented coaches with strong philosophies, who couldn't or wouldn't adjust to maximize their best players. And usually it ends one of two ways. Either the coach eventually adapts, or the relationship becomes untenable and someone leaves. Indiana fans are already making their voices heard. Social media is flooded with criticism of the off-ball strategy. Some fans are saying explicitly that if Caitlin isn't going to play the way they're used to seeing her play, they're not going to keep buying tickets. That might sound like an overreaction, but it's also a rational response from consumers who feel like the product they're being sold isn't what they signed up for. The front office has to be watching this situation carefully. They just invested in a new coach who they believe can take this team to the next level. But they also know that Caitlin Clark is the franchise. She's the reason they sold out games. She's the reason they got national television coverage. She's the reason corporate sponsors are suddenly interested in the Fever. If this conflict continues, if the disconnect between what fans want to see and what Stephanie White wants to run becomes more pronounced, management will eventually have to make a choice. And in professional sports, when it comes down to a coach versus a franchise player who's also a cultural phenomenon, the coach usually loses. So here's the question for Stephanie White. Is this the hill you want to die on? Is playing Caitlin Clark off-ball so fundamental to your vision of winning basketball that you're willing to risk alienating the fan base, frustrating your best player, and potentially putting your job security at risk? Because right now, the evidence doesn't support the strategy. The eye test doesn't support it. The historical precedent of what's made Caitlin successful doesn't support it. And most importantly, the fans who drove a 319% increase in attendance don't support it. Maybe Stephanie White will prove everyone wrong. Maybe her system will click, Caitlin will thrive in a reduced role, and Indiana will win a championship. But until that happens, until there's actual evidence that this approach works, fans have every right to be skeptical. And they have every right to question whether the person who's supposed to be maximizing their favorite player's potential is actually doing that. What do you think? Should Stephanie White adapt her system to Caitlin's strengths? Or should Caitlin keep adjusting to play off-ball? Drop your take in the comments, and if you want more WNBA analysis that doesn't sugarcoat the real issues, hit that subscribe button.